My craziest story is I got.
What? Give me some of that.
But the best part was it was by a dude. So.
Huh? Give me that back. Give me that.
I got some incriminating shit. I can't tell you all the craziest stories, dude. I'll go to jail 100%, especially with everything that's going on today.
I had one lady that smelled like cat piss, and I mean, she was very nice, but kept trying to hug me, but smelled like cats, and she wanted some cat paws, of course, and kept trying to hug me.
Bro, for the longest he was emailing me, wanted a portrait of his wife in a maid's outfit with a vacuum and something else in her other hand. And so he gets to my house, this dude doesn't say anything to me all day. I tattoo him for 7 hours, and I noticed he's watching Big Mouth on his tablet. It's like a cartoon on Netflix. And I was like, oh shit, you watching Big Mouth? I love that show. He's like, yeah, I love it because it's filthy. And I was like...
When it crosses the line of I'm only getting tattooed by you to hit on you, that kind of gets really weird. I had a client that I tattooed for a really long time. He seemed really nice. And eventually I started getting boxes of gifts to my house under a alias, and that was kind of really weird because it was coming to my private residence. I went to do the Philadelphia convention. That was on Valentine's Day. And I got a delivery of roses in my room. And I was like, well, I'm paying a lot for the hotel, so maybe the hotel just gives this cheap bouquet of roses to everybody. And I go to the lobby and I'm like, oh, this is really lovely. And they're like, no, they got delivered for you. And nobody knew what hotel I was staying. So it turns out this client of mine had called all the hotels and figured out where I was staying and then gotten things delivered to me. If you're gonna tell me you like me, send me things under a real name. Don't be that creep that makes me really scared to stay in hotels or travel or do things because I feel like I'm being followed. Yeah. He also had a restraining order from his previous girlfriend, which was really like a little video. Forensic file!
I tattooed a guy who fucks dolphins.
Oh man.
It was him.
I was the dolphin.
I was the guy.
So I remember tattooing some gangsters, one time where it was pretty much kind of like you're either gonna do this or you're gonna get f***ed up, and it's not so funny, but
I think I was doing a big back of his calf kind of pattern or something, and yeah, he just hops up and he's like, all right, time to go, and it's like, no, it's not. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he just gave me this weird look and he's like, oh man, I'm really sorry. I was really high on ketamine.
I had a guy one time, I'm tattooing him on the chest. He kept talking shit. I think he was drunk, but he kept reaching up and slapped me in the face. Finally, I reached down, I grabbed him by his throat, and I pulled him out into the alley. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna f you up. I still had the gloves on, you know what I mean? Then, of course, he goes into the drunk crying guy. Like, dude, I'm sorry, dude. Don't hit me while I'm f***ing tattooing you, all right? I'll put a breath mint in, I'm sorry.
I tattooed a real good client of mine. He's a good dude. He had an injury, an existing injury that he had went to the hospital for. He took some medication, and then he decided, I don't think he realized he took the medication and thought about it, but he ended up taking some edibles. And so this bag of gummy worms were I think it was 300 milligrams of THC for the whole bag. And I think you're only supposed to eat half of a gummy worm or something. He ate them all. Dude, and he was up. So he was laying halfway outside of the bathroom, and I asked him, I'm like, hey dude, can you get up? And he was like, I can't move. And so he was like, hey, can you call the ambulance? And I look at the guys at the shop and I'm like, dude, should I call the ambulance? And they're like, well, yeah. And even the guys from the ambulance come out and they're like, dude, you're chest high, you gotta write it out. But no, man, he made him take him away in the gurney and everything, and they took off to the hospital, man, and he spent the night. just for being way too high. It was awesome.
She was just one of those clients where you take everything from the etiquette wrong. And like what she got tattooed was kind of weird, but I get it, it's personal. Touching the artists, getting really sloppy, bringing in children, being late, just being very, very loud to the point where they like shut all the windows and barriers between our rooms so nobody would have to hear her because the sounds that were coming out of her. It sounded like I was killing an animal, and I'm vegan, so I definitely wasn't killing an animal in my station.
I have walked in a friend of mine's shop and he was tattooing, and the client's husband was sitting on the couch. I peeked in the window and
I don't even.
he was getting a from the guy's wife while he was tattooing her. That was kind of fucking weird.
Figured that's where that was going.
We were chatting and he was funny and I was just tattooing his arm and he's kind of like just sitting there like sideways like this and I was like over here. And then I started to notice that like his banter had just disappeared, his acknowledgements had disappeared. And so I did like one of these and I was like, hey, you okay? And his eyes were still super open and he was just sitting there and like clearly passed out, open eyes. They hadn't even rolled to the back of his head. And I was like, what the It's like, holy I killed this guy. So we had those like ammonia things that you break in half and you make them smell it to wake them up. I was in such, I was convinced this guy had died, and my first immediate reaction was to break this thing and shove it in his nostrils and then just slap him to try to wake him up. And then he came right back to it mid-conversation. He was all like, yeah, and then I said to my wife, I'm getting this tattoo, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, holy fuck, man, you just fucking died, I think.
I've seen everything from pissing in chairs, passing out, to throwing up, to periods, all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, you're like, is that tattoo blood? No, that's not tattoo blood. Ma'am?
I was sitting next to Jada Moon when she tattooed that girl's ass in Boston. That was amazing.
We had this girl come in to one of my old shops and she asked for her nipples tattooed. And it wasn't like, tattoo a nipple on. It was like she wanted like legit nipple color changed. And so we were like, why do you want that? Because it wasn't even like anything around the nipple. Like I've had friends ask me that, totally cool. And she's like, yeah, I want them darker because my boyfriend likes dark nipples. He doesn't like mine. And I'm like, then he shouldn't even be looking at yours and you need a new boyfriend. And she was not pleased with it. And she didn't get tattooed there, but like, girl, I did you a favor. Get a new man.
So I was tattooing this lady in her 60s with a pacemaker. She like had a written note from her doctor, all this other stuff. She's like, can I go to the restroom now? I'm like, yeah, sure. I help her up, hold her hand, make sure she's sturdy. And she's like, okay, cool, I'm good. Literally takes not even like one step and just keels back and just wham, slaps her head on the concrete. So I immediately put my hand on her head. I freaking grab, like somebody threw me a pillow. I pull my hand back and my hand's like covered in blood. So I'm like, oh, I went home. I was like visibly shook. Shows up at the shop later that day and asks if we can set up to finish the tattoo. Like, whoa, she just got 7 staples in her head. And she's just like...
You just gotta get the first feint out of the way and you're good to go.
Like, Jesus.
Yo, I had a chick on my table, yo. Like, bro.
No way, really?
What? Yo, bro, I tell her...
I had a chick shit herself.
Never had that happen.
Shit herself, bro.
Her name is Carmen, bro, in the Bronx, bro. She's on your table, my dude. Hold this. I swear to God, bro.
Hold this.
I'm tattooing her. I'm doing her leg, bro. I'm tattooing her, and she's sitting there, and she's just chilling. And then I'm like, and she was like, oh my God, this hurts. I'm doing flowers, bro. And I got started with the leaf, and I knew something was
like flowers.
I knew something was up, man, because I'm doing the leaf on the bottom, and she was just like, I'm like, are you okay? And she's just like, and now it just really hurts. I'm like, listen, we're gonna be here for a long time. You sure you can take this? She was like, yeah, no problem. Her man gets up, leaves out the room. She's sitting there, and she goes, Now I'm used to hearing farts all the time, so that is funny to me, especially if I find that shit is farting. I think that is hilarious because the cute ones always have the wet ones. Like, and you're like, oh, shit. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, and I look up at her, she got her jacket right on the side, and she just like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, what? She was like, oh my God. I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, what is that smell? She's like, I'm so f***ing embarrassed. I'm like, you should be. Did you just on the table? And she's just like, oh my God, can you please call my man? He comes in the room, dude, and he's just like, what's going on? I said, yo, girl, just on this fucking table. I'm not finishing this. Like, bro, she felt so embarrassed, bro. She grabbed her jacket, ran out the shop with dripping off her leg, ran to the car, jumps in the car, and he's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Pay me.
Girl just
clean this up, because I'm not doing it. And, yo, bro, it was the funniest I've ever seen. I think that story topped out anybody ever passing out, bro. Like, I had a female on my table. And it wasn't like a little bit, bro. Like, it was like a full. It was like I had too much tacos and beer for like, I was like, oh my God, that shit came out of you? Like, it was bad.
Man,
Where you from?
I'm from Reno, Nevada. So every crazy story I have is outside the tattoo shop, and they're still open cases. So.
Ah,
man.
You ever seen the show Don't F with Cats?